All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin. Next week is going to be my 6-year anniversary of Kaiser, and I'm honored to work here. And I hope this is at a minimum interesting, but also I hope one person makes a positive step from this. That's why I chose to come up here and share my story. So a little bit more about me. In the top left, I'm a dad. And to that 16-month-old beautiful little guy, and a husband to my wonderful wife. I've got 2 sisters. We've moved around a lot, didn't really come from much. But to go a little deeper into me, I've always been the eternal optimist, the happy puppy dog. Literally, that's a quote people have told me several times. Full of joy for life, all that sort of thing. And that doesn't mean I haven't faced anything that's been hard. We all get punched in the face sometimes by life. But what it does mean is I've always been really resilient and bounced back and dust myself off, and even been a coach and mentor to help others do that. And that was always the case in my life until it wasn't. I lost that ability about this time in 2016. It was the hardest thing I've ever been faced with. Whew, I don't want to get emotional. Hardest thing I've ever faced with. Harder than breaking bones, harder than losing loved ones, harder than working till 1 in the morning, weeks straight, harder than being a dad. It is the hardest thing I've ever been faced with. And I'm faced with it to this day. And my story is not about a traumatic event. I didn't T-bone a monk or anything like that. My story is about a 1.5-year journey about how anxiety and stress can creep up on you, and then that can lead to some negative thought, and then stigma can keep you there and bring you to a really negative spot if you don't do anything about it. So I'm going to share a little bit about how I got there, what it was like, how I've been bouncing back. So there's 3 parts to how I got there. The first part I would call extreme stress, extreme change. So in about a 1.5 years, we moved twice. That's stressful. Bought a home. That's stressful. My job role focus changed several times in 2 years to very, very different things. That's stressful. We found out we're going to be parents, which is very joyful, but also very scary. My wife, our son, had some complications and had to be induced early, and that was tough. And then my wife had some postpartum, and that was hard. We had 3 close family members die in this time period, and my wife's mother has mental illness and disappeared and doesn't know she's a grandmother, and we have no idea where she is or if she's even alive to this point. So that was an intense set of all the major life changes that could happen, pretty much happened a couple times. So I blew, I think, some stress fuses and entered the second part of my story, which I would call toxicity and loss of coping. So I love to be up to date with what's going on in the world and who our leaders are going to be and that kind of thing, and just engaging with what's going on in the world. And you may have heard, but 2016, 2017 were slightly negative and toxic years, a little bit. And the reason I bring that up is this came to a head at a family event. So my family came into town, and I learned that some people were of different opinions than me, which is fine, but it was sort of shocking to me because it went against what I thought, all the values and morals I was taught, bringing up. And the way I cope with stress is to exercise, and I went for a run to sort of detox from that, and it was so mind-blowing to me. I slipped off the sidewalk and sprained my ankle, and now I've lost my main form of coping I've always had for the next 2 months. So now I start to, the negative overtakes me, and I start to go into depression. The third part of this is isolation. So I moved from the city to the burbs. When my role shifted to be more individualistic, started working from home more. Went on paternity, have had this now small conflict with some of my family members. So all my sort of network and even my identity has changed or been disrupted in a big way. And that's when I started to go into some pretty dark places and a downward cycle. So I want to pull your attention to the image of the selfie snowboarding there. So this is what it feels like in my mind. So on the right is it's half is color, half is grayscale. So on the right is like the joy and the energy. This is what I love to do. My favorite thing to do is snowboarding. And on the left, where I am, is grayscale. And the way depression is it's like looking through everything in life through grayscale. And I remember taking that photo. It was this past winter. And I remember, on the outside, it's like, yeah, I'm still a happy puppy dog, but I was forcing it, and I didn't feel, it wasn't actually who I was anymore. I remember taking that photo and thinking, I can't be present, and I'm not even enjoying this. And I had that feeling about a lot of things. And what was going on was I was stuck in this, and I wasn't taking any serious action about it. Because in my mind, I was thinking sort of all this sort of stuff brought up, never show weakness, man up, dust yourself off, and not admitting there's a problem. And what was happening during that time was I was going on this negative trajectory, rewiring my brain from an optimist to a pessimist. So I can do anything to I can't do anything. And that was, I was unhappy, I was depleted, I couldn't focus, I couldn't sleep, and it was a terrible way to go through life. And eventually it got to a point where some negative thoughts that I thought I would never have popped in my head. It was like, I remember the first time that happened, I was like, wow, I can't believe that just even came in my head. And it came back, and it came back. And I realized I better do something. And ironically, through the work I've been exposed to in Kaiser, things like Find Your Words and researching rising anxiety, depression rates in young people, because we're millennial strategy, it sort of clicked that this is me too. I'm broken, I need help, that sort of thing. And that paradigm shift was really, really important because it helped me take the first step, and the first step is the hardest, and getting over that damn stigma. Sorry, excuse my German. Because once you take the first one, the next one's easier, and you can start to build momentum. So once I was able to make that paradigm shift and admit I have a problem, start taking action, I started doing other things. And I've got this picture up here of the sun rising, and then your day and the vibrance can start coming back. The things I started to do is talk to people. So I talked to friends and family, and it was uncomfortable, and they didn't know how to respond, most of them. But it helped me, so I kept doing it. Phone coaches with Kaiser, in-person coaches with Kaiser, and then I talked to even my manager, Gretchen, who was really supportive and shared resources like EAP, and didn't take avoid the subject, but followed up and genuinely cared, among many other things. So I thank you and love you for that, Gretchen. That was really important. And then having a mental strategy, because you become what you think about the most. There's no one tactic that works for anyone or any given day. So there's a spectrum of different mental strategies I took, and then forming tiny habits to help hardwire that change. Because this is not something that I think that happens overnight, and it's not something that changes overnight. So I took a bunch of massive action in all those categories. And the last thing I'll call your attention to is the top left, and this is today. And you can see like happy puppy dogs come back. It's not back, doesn't mean I'm perfect, and there's definitely tough days and tough hours. But in taking that first step and then taking the additional steps, I feel like I am getting myself back, and that's an awesome feeling to have. So my message to everyone here today is, if you're even at the early stage of this, anywhere on the spectrum, get over that whatever is in your mind that's stopping you from doing something. Take that first step, do the health assessment, the mental health assessment, seek some help out. And if you see somebody else who says something like, that sounds like depressive, or you see that look of hopelessness on their face, don't change the subject, don't buy them another beer, follow up with them and ask them, how are you doing? I noticed you said this. I want to see if you're doing okay. Because if I knew what I knew today, I would probably have some family and friends still alive. So thank you, and I hope this helps someone take that first step.